We turn now to the Netherlands, in which we are joined on the ground by Rebel News reporter Lewis Brackpool, who has been there with these farmers for the past several days. Lewis, really appreciate you being here. I'm glad to get an interview from someone who's actually been on the ground and seeing what's going on out there. I'll just ask you, you've been there for a few days now. Rebel News I've watched a lot of the videos and clips that have been coming out from your outlet. What is the latest that you're seeing from these farmers? I know they have barricaded government buildings. They've sprayed manure on government buildings. I think it's great. I'm all for that. What's the latest that you've been seeing from these farmers? What are they saying?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. But yeah, it's been an intense few days, I must admit. We've been really embedded with the farmers and the supporters who have been really, really welcoming to us coming here and actually telling their side of the story. When we were, of course, reporting with them, there was a blockade we reported on. We had a tip-off that a bunch of supporters wanted to block the highway, and we said to them we'd like to, of course, follow and report and obviously talk to them to why they were doing it. And they blocked the highway around 3 times for one night, and we had a good discussion about why they were doing it, because how passionate they are, and you know, they're just very, very angry with this government overreach from the Dutch government and, of course, the World Economic Forum. Now, the thing with this is, it seems to be happening not just in the Netherlands, but these kinds of policies have been happening throughout not only Europe, but of course Canada, the United States, and various others. And we have a tractor just going past now, which is perfect timing. But on top of that, we were speaking to the supporters whilst we were reporting. They were doing things such as making up barbecues in the middle of the highway, bringing duvets, bed sheets, and just making up their cars to beds, because they were that passionate in supporting the farmers. And we've, of course, spoken to farmers on the ground who, once again, of course, are not very happy with the outcomes of these radical environmental policies. And over in the Friesland area of the north of part of Holland, farmers took it upon themselves to go to the provisional government building to block the area and actually camp there overnight for 2 days to meet with politicians to have their demands said. And if nothing happens or they don't get their demands, it seems to me that things might escalate.
And Lewis, I had a guest on Friday who's from the Netherlands. She's a philosopher, a legal philosopher. She was saying that, you know, the government is saying this is about the nitrogen emissions. We have to bring it down and cut it in half and get this net zero climate approach. She was saying that, you know, the nitrogen emissions is a myth. It's not actually happening. Farmers aren't actually destroying the environment like the government wants to make them think. And what this is really about is the government ultimately wants to take these farmers' land so that they can transform it into an urban city and use it to house migrants. What are you hearing from farmers on this? Do the farmers know? Do they agree that this is not actually a climate policy, but that that's just a guise for what they really want to do?
To simply put, yes. I spoke to one farmer who said they're only interested in our land. They're not interested in nitrogen. That's the crux of it, because they want to take, I believe, 30% of the farmer's land and then, of course, either build on top of this to combat nitrogen emissions, as they keep saying, which is awful. I mean, imagine that you're a farmer. You've had generations and generations of course, your business, and of course, don't forget that the Netherlands is an extremely high exporter in foods and supply chains in general, in the middle of an inflation, and they want to have state control over farmlands. It just doesn't make sense. So, of course, naturally, the farmers are very, very upset, as we've been seeing for the past couple of days. But yes, it seems to be that's the word on the ground as well. You're completely correct.
And the guest that I just had on before you, Lewis, I was joking because you bring up a good point. The government wants to come in, take these beautiful plots of land, thousands of acres of forest and trees and fields, and they just want to prop up giant concrete buildings on it. And they say that it's for the environment. The environmentalists want to quite literally wipe out the environment, wipe out nature, and just pour concrete all over it.
Yeah, sounds very green, doesn't it? Yeah, so to add, speaking to, of course, the farmers and their demands, one of their main demands is just to have a vote on it. I think that's almost too polite in a way, because why should they democratically vote on something that's just being taken away from them by the state? It doesn't make sense. That's my own personal opinion, but the farmers say that they want at least, at the very, very minimal, to have a say in their own property. And to quote the philosopher that I believe that you had on, I believe it was Ava, she said it's basically a form of communism, which I completely agree with. It's unbelievable that it's actually come to this. But once again, this is all the tentacles from the World Economic Forum really getting to grips with Europe and beyond to implement these Agenda 2030 sustainable development type policies, which are, of course, going to kill off the agricultural sector in the Netherlands and potentially other places as well. And don't forget America as well, with Bill Gates buying up a lot of farmland. So that's another thing to be very, very concerned about.
Yeah, Bill Gates is I believe the largest owner of farmland, at least in the United States, maybe in the entire world. I'm not quite sure on that. But Lewis, with that said, I really appreciate all of your hard reporting out there. Been following along with your Twitter and will continue to do so, as well as rebelnews.com. Keep up the good work. Stay safe out there. Thanks for joining the show.
Thank you very much. And just quickly, I just want to say, if you'd like to visit farmerrebellion.com, that's where you can find all the reports and stay up to date. And thank you very, very much once again for having me on. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Farmerrebellion.com. We'll go to it. Thanks, Lewis.
Myself and Lincoln J are following updates of the Dutch farmers who are demonstrating against the Dutch government about the radical green policies. If you'd like to support our work, you can head on over to farmerrebellion.com to support our work, help chip in and donate, and keep the updates going.
Yes, guys, through that website, you can stay up to date with all of our coverage so you do not miss a beat. Right behind us is just one of many protests happening across the Netherlands in relation to new environmental policies the government here is trying to implement. So go to farmersrebellion.com and consider donating if you can. It's not cheap for us to get over here, guys. If you want to help out with our travel, food, and accommodation costs, you can donate through that same website.